Good girl. Hello again. So after making my apartment tour video, I was asked by a couple people to make an intro video and sort of talk about myself a little bit for people who don't know me personally and just found me on my YouTube channel, and talk about why I wanted to come teach English in Korea and how I got my job here, which is probably really helpful information for someone who's also looking to come to Korea to teach English.
Come on, baby.
So I just graduated this past May with my degree in marine biology, my bachelor's degree. And I know that I want to go to grad school, but I know that I was not ready to go straight into it. I worked my butt off in undergrad and I was really burnt out by the time I was finished. And so I knew I needed a bit of a break from school, and so I wanted to take a gap year and do something else. I had a friend a couple years ago who was graduating and who was talking about trying to apply to teach English abroad, and that was the first time I'd heard of teaching English abroad, and I guess I just stored that somewhere in the back of my mind. And over the last couple years of my undergrad degree, I did a lot of traveling, a lot of study abroad opportunities and field studies and things like that, and I really got the travel bug. So I knew that I was wanting to take this gap year from school. Traveling was something I really, really wanted to do. And then it kind of clicked for me that I had heard of this teaching English abroad thing before, and so I started doing some research into that and seeing how feasible it would be for me to do that. And I found out that it's not really that difficult to get qualifications to come teach English abroad, and you can travel and save some money at the same time actually as well. So not just working to fund being able to travel, but actually being able to save money was something that I was really excited about, thinking ahead for grad school that I probably want to have some money saved up for grad school. And so spending this gap year teaching English abroad just really made sense for me, and something that I knew I wanted to do for a couple years before I actually got into it. So when I started the process of looking into different countries and where I could go and what I wanted to do, I wasn't really sure. I was looking at a bunch of different places. Asia was kind of top on my list just because I had never been to Asia before. It would be something totally new and totally new experience for me. So I knew I was wanting to do Asia most likely, but I was kind of looking everywhere. And then while I was at Duke University in North Carolina for a semester, I met a good friend of mine, shout out Travanya and also Emily, and they got me into everything Korean, from K-dramas to K-pop to all of that stuff, the food, the culture. And so I started looking into teaching English in Korea because I thought, well, if I'm going to teach English abroad, it may as well be a country I have some knowledge about and some interest in. And luckily enough for me, I found out that Korea has one of the best benefits programs for foreign English teachers. Japan has usually the best benefits through their program, but you usually have to already have a significant amount of teaching experience, or you have to know Japanese, or both is sort of my understanding if you want to get into that program. It's called the JET program. It's highly competitive, and I knew that I did not have the qualifications to get into that anyway. And so the second best country in the world for benefits for foreign English teachers is Korea. So it just fit really well for me that I was wanting to come to Korea at this point after experiencing K everything through my friend Rania, and then finding out that they had really good benefits and I'd be able to save money while teaching English abroad for a year. I knew that this was the place for me. I originally looked at going into the public school system with EPIC or JEPIC, but then a bunch of complications with my paperwork came up because I'm a British citizen who was living in the US, and there was some confusion about which background checks I needed and all this stuff. But anyway, long story short is that I didn't have the right paperwork at the end to go through with the public education program, the EPIC program, but I was still able to apply for private schools or Hagwons. So I ended up coming here to teach at a Hagwon. I used a recruiter, so if you are looking to come to Korea to teach English, the first thing you need to do is find a recruiter. Now there's a bunch of them. There's recruiters everywhere. You just type into Google Korea English teaching recruiter, and there's so many that come up. So I used multiple. I used a couple at the same time. Mostly I used Teach ESL Korea, which is the one I ended up coming with to Korea as the agency I signed my contract through. And then the other recruiter I used was Corvia, who were also extremely helpful and really reliable and really wonderful to work with as well. And they helped me get here even though I was not signing my contract through them. So those are definitely 2 recruiters I would recommend, and I'll post links for them to the description in this video. But find recruiters that work for you, and basically you're gonna send them all of your information, and they're gonna help you basically get your name out to different schools or different programs that you're looking at. So they'll kind of guide you through that process, and they'll help you decide if public or private is best for you. But I'm actually planning on making another video to talk about the differences between coming with Epic and then coming through a Hagwon, because I think there's a lot of myths out there. Originally, I'd only heard bad things about Hagwons, like horror stories, and they were like blacklists and all this stuff, but it's not actually like that. And I think I was really lucky for picking a Hagwon in the end. I think it has benefited me a lot, and I'll talk about that in a different video. But one of the most important things I would recommend if you are trying to come here to create a Teach English is make an introduction video. That was huge for me for getting interviews. As soon as I sent that video to my recruiter, I immediately had schools asking me for interviews. And I think I did 5 or 6 interviews maybe before I picked a school to sign a contract with. And doing that video really helped schools see who I was and why I wanted to come to Korea and why I was passionate about spending this year teaching, and also just hearing me speak. That's something they want to know about you, is how do you speak? How are you going to be talking when you're interacting with these kids? Are you easy to understand? Can you speak slowly enough? So make sure that when you do that video, understand that it's Korean workers that are watching it, and they may not be fluent in English. So speak very properly and clearly, so they know that you are going to be good when you're teaching kids, making sure that you're talking properly. And in those videos, you can find a bunch of guides online about what to put in them, and your recruiter will probably tell you, but basically just talk a little bit about your background, why you want to come to Korea specifically, why you want to teach English, and then also a little bit about your philosophy in the classroom. What kind of classroom environment do you want to foster? What kind of age group of kids maybe do you want to work with, and things like that. And also really important, why you would be a good English teacher, why you think that you're qualified. One of the really important qualifications if you're coming to Korea specifically is that you get your TEFL or TESOL degree. During my last semester of college, I worked towards getting mine just by taking an online course. You can do it all online at your own pace. I think it took me maybe just under 2 months to complete it when it's supposed to be like a 4-month course. So if you want to do it really quickly, you can speed it up, or you can take your time and do it over, I think, up to 6 months. But you definitely want to make sure you're doing that early enough that you have it on your resume by the time you're applying for these jobs in Korea, by the time you submit all this information to your recruiter. So basically how it went for me then was through my recruiter, I got a bunch of interviews, including Epic, and I did get accepted to the Epic program, but like I said, it didn't work out just because of some silly paperwork hiccups. And then I also got interviews for 3 or 4 different Hagwons, and I got contract offers from all the schools that I interviewed with, which was really great for me. It meant that I could pick and choose kind of where I wanted to be, the age group I wanted to work with, what kind of school I wanted to be in. I don't want to get into too much detail with that just because I am going to make that other video about public schools versus Hagwons. But yeah, I just worked with my recruiter, and I think doing that video was the best thing I did for myself, getting those interviews. Know that the interviews might seem kind of weird from a Westerner's perspective. My interviews were usually really, really short, only a couple questions, and then it was sort of like, okay, that's fine, that'll do, and the interview was over. And at first, I felt that I must be doing something wrong or saying something wrong, and that they were deciding, yeah, no, we're not going to waste any more time, let's end the interview. And I asked my recruiter about it. I said, I'm kind of worried, like these interviews don't seem like they're going well. And my recruiter at the time got back to me and said, oh my gosh, no, our feedback from your interviews has been that they're really great. And then that's when the contract offers started coming in. So I knew I was doing well at these interviews. And basically my recruiter explained that when you send that video with part of your application, they already see sort of your personality and how you talk and how passionate you are. And at that point, the interview is a formality. They just have to do it, but they've already pretty much decided that they're gonna offer you the position. So that's why those interviews were super short and sweet, and why I felt like I wasn't being asked a lot of questions is because they pretty much had all the information they needed from me anyway. During my interviews, I got asked to do sort of mock teaching. So the interview is over Skype, but then they ask you, oh, say this is a kindergarten class and you're teaching about colors. Go ahead and do it now as if you're in front of that class teaching colors. You sort of have to play out this little scene with the class, and you say, okay, well then class, we're gonna do this game, and you're kind of speaking to your interviewer, but you're supposed to be speaking as if you're talking to 5-year-olds, at least in the case of my interview with a kindergarten school. So that was a little strange for me and a little awkward, and I wasn't prepared for that in my first interview. I didn't know that was gonna happen, and so I kind of stumbled through that. Wasn't a big deal. I still got a contract offer from the school. They understand that that's a weird question, but if you are looking to come here to teach with a Hagwon and they're doing a Skype interview, know that that's probably going to be something they'll ask you to do. So be prepared, maybe have a little lesson plan prepared, and just know that it's okay. Just like pretend you're not on Skype and act out as if you're in front of a class. And then from there, once you do all your interviews and you get contract offers, it's really important to read through your contract, every single word. To know, not only just to know what you're getting yourself in for, but also knowing that you can ask for something to be changed. So the end date on my original contract was too late for me. I know I want to go to grad school this coming year, and I knew that that end date meant that I was going to miss a week or two at the beginning of a program, no matter which school I ended up going to. So I went back and I said, I want to accept this contract if this is changed. And so I got the date changed to an earlier date so that I can get to grad school on time, basically at the end of my year here. Once you accept a contract, you do a whole bunch of other paperwork stuff. I'm not going to get into all the paperwork nitty-gritty because that's what your recruiter is for. They help you do all of that, and also it changes year to year. So it probably wouldn't even be that helpful for me to tell you because you're going to have to ask somebody on your end anyway if you're coming here. So you do a bunch of paperwork. You get your visa, which is a really exciting thing, but usually that happens pretty late. So if you're like me and you're a super uber planner, know that you're going to be stressed out for a couple weeks waiting for certain paperwork things to come back, waiting for things to arrive in Korea in the mail at your school, waiting for your school to apply for your visa at the Korean embassy, waiting for the Korean embassy to communicate with the embassy in your home country, and then waiting while you mail, or sometimes you have to drive personally to your embassy, but in my case I had to mail my passport to the embassy and waiting for my passport to come back with the visa in it. And I think that only ended up happening maybe 3 or 4 weeks before I was due to come out here, which is like more time than most people are given. Usually you get your visa like the week or two before you come out here. So know that that process will maybe be a little crunchy at the end time-wise, but it usually all works out. And then in my case, my school bought my flight for me, so I don't really have any advice about buying the flight. My school took care of it for me. I just had to show up at the airport on the right day and at the right time, pick up my tickets, and I was on my way. The flight here was not enjoyable for me. I flew from Florida to New York, and then it was, I think, a 14-hour straight through flight, New York to Seoul. The time difference is awful, so on the flight, every time I tried falling asleep, they were serving me food, which got my body really confused about what time it was, and I was just exhausted, and then I ended up getting sick. I ended up in the bathroom for like the last 45 minutes of my flight throwing up, so definitely not the best way to get to Korea. I still have nightmares sometimes about having to fly back home because that flight just kind of traumatized me. So know that it's a bit of a long flight and it's kind of tough. Maybe if you book your flight yourself, you could do two stints and do a layover of a day or two somewhere. You can kind of go exploring or something. But when my school booked my flight, it was a straight through flight, and it's tough but it's worth it because you get to Korea, and you don't have to go on that flight, hopefully, again for another year. So if anyone is watching this video and you're thinking of coming to Korea, or if not, if you're just curious and you have any questions about the process of coming over here, let me know, and I'll maybe make another video or try and respond to comments personally. But anyway, I hope this video was helpful and informative. And then also I made an apartment tour video. If you haven't watched that already, I will post right here. Click on it, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos that I'll be putting out from my adventures in Korea. So, 감사합니다.